morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may find yourself in the world, and welcome. My name is Shervin Evans, and I have been inside the field of IT for about 30 years. I have many experience inside the financial sectors, including insurance company as well. My background range from programming to infrastructure design to cybersecurity, and each one of these areas help build on how you would have dealt with cybersecurity as the time comes. You can build, and one of the things that you also find out with all of these comprehensive training or experience, you will find that you are able to continue to move to another level in cybersecurity. You are building more like a building block, making each step. I also hold a master's degree inside cybersecurity as well, and I've had an opportunity to be served on the CyberEdBoard across other sectors of the country, dealing with government and assisting governments in carving and drafting certain legislation and reviewing legislation pertaining to Bitcoins and all of that. So it's a comprehensive training, comprehensive experience that I've had, and I thank you just for being here this morning. Let's look at our agenda this morning. This is what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to cover what is threat modeling, the importance of threat modeling, the limitations of checklists, key limits and often an effect, threat modeling culture. We're going to also look at threat modeling and methodologies, and we're going to look at real world breaches, because I want to show you how some of the real world breaches that we saw in the past, and how we could have used threat modeling, or the company could have used threat modeling techniques to assist. And then we're going to take some step approach. We're going to take a step approach to look at how we can begin building out that threat modeling culture. So let's go on. What is threat modeling? So we have threat modeling really is looking at taking a proactive approach. You take a proactive approach to identify vulnerabilities in your environment, as opposed to just an ad hoc way of identifying the vulnerabilities. You want to take a proactive approach in the way you identify vulnerabilities. The goal is to anticipate the attackers before they happen to mitigate any. So you want to anticipate the hackers. You want to know exactly what vulnerabilities inside your environment, and you want to be able to know exactly what is what can be seen out there, and you want to try to mitigate those vulnerabilities, identify them. You want to mitigate those before they can be exploited. So the importance of threat modeling, you want to look at this is very important, and it can be used in so many different facets within inside our organization. It is not something that we think that it is not applicable, but it is applicable to every single organization. If you have connectivity to the internet, if you are transmitting files or whatever you are doing, this whole thing is applicable to you. So threat modeling helps threat intelligence analysts. You identify the threat, that's one. You need to classify the threat, that's two. And you want to prioritize the threat. So you need to understand, identify what threat is there. You want to actually put a classification to that threat. Understand whether this is critical. You want to know whether this is a medium threat. You want to know this is a critical, this is high, or this is just, you want to prioritize that. Now, you want to prioritize it because you want to address that. You need to address that threat as quickly as possible. But when you put them inside the classification, then you are able to identify them very quickly. An effective threat intelligence report helps security defense. So once you have that report and you have already identified, you already prioritized, and you will find out that this will assist you so much in being able to defend against a lot of the threat that is happening out there. So in the past, there used to be checklists. We tried to do checklists to try to see if we could find a way to do these threat lists, and we go through these checklists and begin to write, but we know that a lot of things is changing within inside the threat landscape. And because of the different changes, the checklist cannot provide the comprehensive approach that we need to be able to deal with the threat. So the limitations of the checklist is that one size fit all approach. One size do not fit all. Each organization are different, and you will note that because of the difference and the different challenges and the different threat to that organization, we cannot use the one fit all approach. Encourage checkbox compliance. The thing with the checkbox compliance is the limitation of this is that you have to consistently try to keep up with compliance that is happening, or there things change, but you will have to run back to the checklist to make adjustment to that list. But when you put in an automated process, as it changes, the automation will also happen inside the middle of that changes as well. It ignores evolving threats. So here it is that checklists don't consider new threats. It only considers the threat that is already known. So there are new developing threats out there. So any new threat, a checklist will not allow you to be able to identify those threats because of the limitation that it has. The lack of content, what it does, it doesn't give you that critical thinking process as if you would have used an automated process. And many of the automated process also have AI built in, and you can make those adjustments for pertaining looking for anomalies and all of that. But when you use the checklist doesn't have this ability, and it doesn't foster ownership. When you have a checklist, who is responsible for that? Who owns adjusting that checklist? No one wants to be responsible to be adjusting checklists every single day. And I'm not talking about weeks. This is a daily process that you will have to do with these checklists, because remember, vulnerability change daily. You go to sleep at one night, and when you wake up in the morning, there's some adjustments has to be made. The key elements of effective threat modeling. Now we want to look at some of the key elements here. We look at collaboration, communication, adaptability, and continuous improvement. Now these are the 4 principles that will assist you in being able to create an effective threat modeling. One, you need to collaborate. You need to be able to engage across the organization, understand what the threat is to that particular unit, and find a way to be able to gather that information. And the only way you can do that if you collaborate across team, across functional team, across the organization, across departments. Ongoing communication. The thing with threat, you have to consistently discuss these things, and you want to continue to make sure you have an active communication moving back and forth. You do not want to have threats that are going on and then you discuss it one time and then you put it aside. You do not want to put that aside. You want to ensure that you have a consistent conversation, and then you also want to make sure that it's adaptable. You want to respond quickly to those emerging threats. But if you cannot identify, you are not able to classify, and if you're not able to prioritize, then you cannot respond. What are you responding to? Because you don't know exactly what's out there. And then another important thing that we have to do as in an effective threat modeling culture is we have to continuously improve, always looking for ways to improve things, always looking at the new practices that might be happening, always consistently trying to find a way to make it better, as opposed to just have the threat modeling is there and you leave it itself to function. But with a checklist, you cannot use the checklist because someone has to monitor that. And even if you use an automated process, you still have to continuously provide improvement to it to make it better. Now, let's look at ways that we can incorporate threat modeling within to the organization, because we may say that threat modeling is not something that we need within our organization. You have to make threat modeling a regular practice. You have to educate. You can use this and talk about this inside security awareness programs. I know I have used it many times inside the security awareness programs that consistently train the users to be able to assist me with regards to threat modeling and what they are seeing. And it have been very effective. Some of the things that I receive back from the user is unbelievable. It means that they are also taking it serious. So education is really key. You want to get everyone involved within the organization, from the senior level all the way down to a lower level. Remember, you have to get to the point where this thing between the security is everyone's business and not just the security department business. You want to embed it into the software development lifecycle, or in some cases, we persons might say the system development lifecycle. You want to ensure that when you are going through the process, even as building an application or implementing a system, you want to ensure that you create that daily workflow. You want to understand before you would have deployed that system or deployed that application. You want to understand what are the threats to this application before this application becomes live and usable to the user, or even accessible by the internet. You want to train and encourage team participation. There's nothing more important than ensuring that your team are fully trained. I cannot say that enough. Train your team. If your team will be working with you to ensure that these threat modeling and ensure that you protect the organization, you want to provide them with the necessary training. And you also want to find ways to include them and give them the ownership, make them feel that they have ownership of the whole threat model, the whole security environment, and you want to consistently help them in that area. You want continuous feedback, because you want to improve on what you have. It will never be perfect. So when you practice and you continue to improve on it, you continue to get better at it. But we all strive for perfection in these days, but we know that we would not be perfect inside it, but we continue to strive. We have something to strive for. And if we don't have anything to strive for, then we'll say, then what's the point? So we want the continuous feedback, and we want so that we can add that necessary improvement. We want to promote leadership support. We note that the best way that we can do threat modeling or security within an organization is through leadership, senior leadership. We want to ensure that they understand. We want to ensure that they understand where the liabilities are. We want to ensure that they know that they are responsible in the event that anything happens. And so we want to promote the senior leadership. We want to ensure that we have good support from our staff, and we want to ensure that we have good support from our senior leadership as well. So let's look at some ways that we can use threat modeling. And this is just to be able to identify some of the things that we'll do. So we'll take the step approach. So the first thing is in threat modeling, we want to identify the asset. If you cannot identify the asset, then what are you actually trying to protect? So you have to understand what it is that you're trying to protect by identifying the asset. And there's also a point when you identify, then you have to classify the importance of that asset to you as well. In the event that something would have happened to that asset, how critical that asset is to the organization. We want to outline the architecture. We want to be able to know exactly where things are connected. We want to see that we know that this switch is connected here, this server is connected here. We want to ensure that we have the whole architecture outlined. And in the event that if there are a threat within the architecture, we know exactly where we need to go and we can respond quickly. You imagine that you have a map and you're trying to find a location, but you don't have a map. You heard that this location is west. You don't have a compass to tell you what is west. So what are the things that you're going to do? Are you going to go west? You may find yourself in the east. So once you have that map, and that's exactly what the outline of the architecture is, you have that mapping so that you can provide the guideline. Break down your application. You need to understand, as I mentioned, the criticality of these applications, which ones are critical from the ones that are more critical to the business. So if the business would have lose this application, how would the business function? How long can the business function without this application? So you want to break it down, want to understand the application, you want to know exactly the criticality of the application to the business, and you want to continue to understand exactly who or which department uses this application. And all of these will help you in being able to protect the application. You want to identify the threat. When we identify the asset, we have an outline. We are able to break down the application to understand the criticality of these applications. Then the next thing we want to do is identify the threat to these applications. So once we identify the threat to these applications, then we can move to the next phase where we can classify and we can structure the threat. So we can classify the threat to understand this threat is more dangerous to the organization and to this department. We cannot have maybe the risk department, we cannot have the compliance department, or whatever department that you have that may be using that application. And then we want to rate the severity. And I did mention once you classify it, you also have to rate the severity of the threat so that you can deal with the threat based on the severity, but also based on the impact to the organization as well. So threat modeling methodologies. When implementing a threat modeling, you want to look at the different approaches. You want to look at the processes and objectives. See, there are various cyber threat modeling exists, and we will go through a few of them that can assist us with regards to just helping us to be able to protect the organization. Here are 6 of the threat modeling, and I must say that these 6 are some of the ones that are used out there. There are others, but these are really, really good starting points where you want to be able to utilize these 6. And we're going to not dive down deep into these, but we're just going to do a surface approach and look at a few of them. So this is the real world threat breach. Now, when I thought about some of the threats that happened in the past and some of the threats that are happening now, I sat down and I wanted to see how we can use threat modeling and how the company or how many of the IT or the security people could have used threat modeling to be able to detect certain things before it happened. So when we look at Equifax, and we see that what happened was the unpatched Apache system, right? So there was 147 million record leaks. So when we look at the threat modeling, right, techniques, we could have used Stride. We're going to use a data flow diagram, and they're going to take a systematic approach to that application. And when going through those applications, they will find that they may discover that the system had a patching problem. Then we look at the critical asset. They will realize that this critical asset exposure was insecure. So when you look at it, remember we said that you identified, you will be able to just say that how critical this are, and then you will understand the different threats to this application. So if we would have used threat modeling, we could have used these tools such as Microsoft TMT and Threat Dragon. When we look at Capital One, you know that with regards to AWS WFA, misconfiguration happened during this one that stole 100 million records. So if we had used threat modeling, and if threat modeling was used in this, you will see that they have used password threat abuse cases, and what they would have found that misconfigured cloud permissions. Now, when we deal with cloud, we have to understand that the responsibility for protecting the data is really the company, because it is your data. So you want to ensure that you protect your data. So some of the threat modeling tools that could have been used that would assist a Capital One team in doing that could have been Iris, Risk, or Threat Modeler. When we look at SolarWinds, we can see as we go through the supply chain attack variety, and we're going to see that attack tree, we're going to use kill chain analysis. So there's so many different things that could have been used to prevent a lot of these things from happening. And as we go on, we'll see the same thing with Uber, Target, and Colonial Pipeline, where that we see what happened to these areas and what was the cause of the breach. We see the threat modeling techniques that could have been used to assist. And we also see the world breach first, what was identified, how these could have been relieved or remediated. And then we see the tools that could have been used to remediate a lot of these. Threat modeling tools, and they were mentioned in SAF previously, and these are some of the threat modeling tools. We're going to look at a few of them. Let's look at Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool. Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool, it is a free tool, and many of these tools are free. We then had to go there and try to purchase licenses, and this one is free. It finds security issue early in the design phase. So in the middle of a design phase, whether it's an application or how you implement, this can assist in providing early detection within the design phase. It can fix problem when they are easier and cheaper. Now, problems are easy and cheap to fix when you are in the initial design phase. Once that application or that system goes live, it becomes very expensive and it becomes dangerous to not fix those problems before the system goes live. Threat modeling, it is an automated tool, and you want to use a lot of automated tools that can assist you as well, and so that it can assist you in consistent running, as opposed to take away the manual stuff that you have to do. It can find and protect and predict a threat early. It can protect the attack surface. It can reduce overall security risk, support secure and scalable development. So you want to especially support that secure and scalable development. That is really key. You want to reduce security risk, which is good, and you want to protect that attack surface. You really want to make sure, and how do you do that? By being able to predict those threats early. When you can predict those threats early, then you can protect your attack surface. Secure CAD Professional, you can see where that it will let you build a virtual model for your IT setup. It helps simulating attack, and when you can simulate those attacks, and you can be able to test your defense, as opposed to going through the process where that you actually fighting off someone who are attacking your system. But when you can simulate that whole process, you can get the real world feel of what is going on and how you will respond, how the team would respond when there is a real attack. It also shows weak spots inside your security. And it also helps you to know exactly how would your team respond. So you want to know quickly how your team would respond to an incident, or you want to know if there is some sort of attack in process, how would my team respond? Then you would use something like this. It helps you choose the best design and fixes. So once you would have tested your design, it will help you to say that, look, this one doesn't work for us. We ran the simulation. We saw what was going on. We also saw that there's some gaps with my team. They didn't understand how to react or act in certain ways. And more of them will probably just running around screaming in some cases. So we want to ensure that they are not doing that. When there is an attack happening, God forbid, we want to be able to get on that right away. We have Iris Risk. It's a threat modeling tool that helps you design secure systems. What it does is that it takes you through questionnaires, and if you take you through questionnaires, it also gives a clear showing of key components and risks, and it suggests security measures to fix vulnerability. So that's what it will help us all to do as we continue to model threat. And as the elements, we want to, what it does, it reduce the risks and costs, and that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to reduce risks, we want to reduce costs. It followed best practices. That's another key thing we want to ensure that we are doing. Following tested best practices. You want to be able to track your security status, and you want to be able to speed up compliance and security, agile for dev team. So you want to be able to assist dev team as we go through the development process. This will help us in that one. And we have OWASP Threat Dragon. OWASP Threat Dragon is free. It is open source again. It draws threat diagrams. It also identified the likely threats. It planned how to fix or reduce them. It works good on web, and it works on desktop applications. So whether you have a web application, we know that OWASP is used a lot for application that is being deployed from a web perspective, but it also can work on desktop application as well. So let's go through this building approach, the step to build a threat modeling culture. So we want to change the culture of the organization. We want to change the whole landscape. So when persons become security conscious, and the first step we want to do is we want to assess the current state. You have to understand your current state. If you need a gap analysis, do it. Ensure that you understand what it is, what the current state is. If you do not understand the current state, then what are we working towards? What are we trying to do? Where are we going to? So you need to understand the current state. It's almost like a blueprint. The current state you assess, we have that blueprint. We know where we are, we know where we need to be, and then we now can take the process. We want to educate. We want to ensure that we are educating again. Education will show up a lot inside this. In fact, education will show up a lot inside cybersecurity because things evolve, threat evolves. So we want to continue educate our people, educate our users, educate our executives. And we want to continue to evangelize, continue to spread the message, continue to allow them to understand what it is, and we can evangelize through education. We look at small wins. When you are actually taking a road trip, or when you're taking a massive project, or even bite an apple, you do not take the whole apple and just devour that. You will bite it piece at a time. And when you take small wins, what it does is build your excitement to move forward. But when you are failing and not feeling that you have accomplished something, then you will actually lose heart. But we don't want to lose heart, so we take small wins. Like we said that we want the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit, the ones that I know I can resolve now, the ones that I can deal with right now, and I can actually be excited for continuing because I want to be able to do that. And we want to do that early in the project. We don't want to have those wins late in the project. We want to do that early in the project. So that's why it is recommended that you embed threat modeling. Like we say, you bake cybersecurity in, you don't bolt it on. And in some instances, we've seen cybersecurity as the afterthought, and it's bolted on, and it's like that guy hanging on the bumper of a car and just screaming, "Help me, help me." But when you look at cybersecurity, you want to make sure that it is in the car. In fact, you want the cybersecurity in the front seat of the car and not actually on the bumper of the car. Create a feedback loop. You want to have a culture where you have consistent feedback. Sometimes feedback can be hard to receive, but we need those feedback in order for us to be able to receive and be able to make changes, we have to receive those feedback and look at them as filter through them, see what can be used, use them to make things better. And that's what we want, to ensure that we are getting feedback. And 5, we want to grow security champions organically. We want to take the time to grow our security champions. We want to let our team know that they are champions already, but we want to assist them in the growth process. We want to ensure that we are mentoring them. We want to ensure that they're excited about being part of cybersecurity. And we want to ensure by training them, we want to educate them, we want to get them involved, and we want to give them small wins. Then we can create this excitement with cybersecurity, this excitement of being a part of the team. Let's look at some takeaways. We want to move beyond the checklist. We do not want to be checklisting everything, because it is not the proper way to manage threat modeling or even anything within cybersecurity. We want to ensure that we make it continuous. We want to ensure that we are adapting to those things. So we want to ensure that it's exclusive. Collaboration, again, and communication are key to success. That is important. We need to ensure that we are collaborating, we are communicating, and we will have some keys to success with this. Empower your team to anticipate and mitigate threats. You can imagine if your team can see threats and they have no power because they have to wait for you to give them the instruction to be able to mitigate threats. You want to empower your team. And how can you empower your team? By training them. Continue to train your team. When you continue to train your team, you continue to let the team feel what it is to have wins, through those small wins, and you are able to consistently have an open line of communication with your team. What you are doing is you are empowering your team to anticipate and mitigate threats, because they felt comfortable, they are excited about it, and they are ready because you took them through the process. Thank you. Well, the first thing you have to do, as I mentioned, that you have to identify in order for you to understand exactly which tool that you need to use. When you identify your asset, and when you are able to classify your asset, the criticality of these assets, and when you are able to identify and classify, then you can look at the various threat modeling tools and the functionality of those tools and what you're trying to achieve. Once you understand the functionality of these tools, then you can choose one of these tools that will give you the outcome that you are looking for. And there are a lot of threat modeling tools out there. I highlighted 6, and these are 6 of the best threat modeling tools out there inside the market right now, the whole approach. And so once you can actually go through that threat modeling process, then you will be able to find them. Remember, there are tools out there that are free, and there are tools out there that are paid tools. And once you can understand what you're trying to achieve, then you will be able to select the tools, because there's a plethora of tools out there. And well, it is kind of difficult to say which one will be effective over the others, because it's based on what I'm trying to achieve. Because if I have one system, I may not use the same one for that particular system. And that's why identifying the system, understanding your asset and your classification. If you know that when I show each of the breach, you saw that in some instances, the tool was different for each of those breaches, because the application and scenario was different. And because the application and scenario are different, you will be able to use one of those. So you want to use the tool that is effective and that gives you the best results for your organization. So don't never put one over the next, just looking based on what you are looking for and which one can give you the best results. That will be the perfect tool to use for your organization. I didn't look at blind spots, and I do not look at blind spots, And the reason for this is that, again, it is each of those methodologies actually assists you in a particular way. So what you do is that you look at the one that is more effective for your organization. Because if we begin to look at the blind spots at those models, what we're going to find out is that we may not find that there is a perfect model out there, because there's no perfect model out there. You want to find a model that actually suits your environment, that can give you the best win, and that can help you to be able to achieve your goal. Wow, that is a very good question, because this is some of the stuff that I'm currently testing right now, because I want to ensure that how AI is actually assisting us. And in fact, I'm a big proponent of AI inside threat intelligence. I'm a big proponent of AI assisting us inside, even inside cybersecurity, because AI can do exactly what we might be slow on getting done. And when you collaborate with AI, adding AI in threat intelligence, it gives you that base to be able to find anomalies quickly, as opposed to a human eye going through that. But AI can assist you identify that. And AI also can assist you where it can identify the threat quickly. It can also spit out the different methods of that threat, and it can provide roadmap for you on how you can identify those threats. So if you have AI and you use it inside your security operation, you will note that your security operation team will continue to be effective in turning around certain threats and resolving threats in a very fast pace, because AI can assist them where they are challenged. You bring in AI and collaborate with AI, and you will see a drastic change in the way they turn out threats or address threats. I love this question. EC Council also have a beautiful threat intelligence course. I did the threat intelligence course, and I must say that threat intelligence course is an A+++. So if you want to be able to utilize, I would recommend the EC Council Cyber Threat Intelligence. And for someone who are just starting out inside cybersecurity, the EC Council also have the CTI. I think it would have been mentioned earlier, and that is also a perfect course to get your feet wet. It gives you a wide range of training in certain different sectors, where there's a networking and many other areas. So I would recommend that threat intelligence course by EC Council. And then if you're new in the field, I will recommend the EC Council CTI 3. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. And what we were talking about today is actually the approach that you will be taking threat modeling and putting it inside the incident lifecycle. In fact, threat modeling is a part of the incident lifecycle. There's no incident lifecycle without involving threat modeling. If you want it to be your incident lifecycle to be very effective, you want to add threat modeling inside that. You want to be able to identify and know the threat. You don't want to respond. You don't want to respond afterthought. You want to respond before an incident happens. So threat modeling helps you to be able to identify and be able to respond before the incident. Incident happens. After an incident happens, then we actually doing a reactive approach. We want to make sure that we do a proactive approach, and threat modeling can be implemented inside incident lifecycle. Before you just trying to start out inside the field of cybersecurity, I would recommend that you begin your process with a CCT. The CCT can assist you in being able to understand everything that you need. And if you are a senior person inside cybersecurity, what I recommend to you is continue to learn, continue to evolve. There are threat changes, the landscape changes every single day by the minute. So you want to evolve. And have it in the middle of all of this, have fun. You have to have fun. If you do not have fun in the middle of this, you very can begin to lose your mind, and when you start thinking about all the stuff that are happening. But you have to have fun and smile. Smile in the process. Smiling is good. It helps to declutter you, especially as a cybersecurity professional. When you smile, it helps to declutter you and just have fun in the process. And that's my recommendation to everyone.